The room was a crypt of silence, its air thick with the musty scent of old paper and the faint tang of ink. The Whammy's house, tucked away in the rolling hills of Winchester, England, was a place of secrets, its walls steeped in the ambitions of prodigies trained to chase shadows. In a small, windowless study on the third floor, illuminated only by the cold glow of a desk lamp, Near sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by a chaos of scattered papers and puzzle pieces. His pale fingers, delicate as a spider's legs, hovered over a single object, a small, locked drawer from Elle's personal effects, delivered to him just hours ago by Roger, the house's caretaker. The drawer was unremarkable polished oak, no larger than a cigar box, with a brass keyhole that gleamed like an unblinking eye. But to Near, it was a relic, a final whisper from the man whose legacy loomed over him like a storm cloud. Elle was dead. The news had come like a blade, sharp and final, cutting through the fragile web of Near's certainty. Kiralight Yagami, as Near now suspected, had outmaneuvered the world's greatest detective, leaving only ashes and questions in his wake. Near had not wept, nor raged. He had simply sat, stacking dominoes in intricate patterns, his mind a labyrinth of calculations. But beneath his placid exterior, a quiet fury burned not at Kira, not yet, but at himself. He was Elle's successor, chosen for his intellect, his detachment, his ability to see what others could not. Yet Elle's death felt like a failure, a crack in the foundation of everything Near had been trained to be. The drawer had arrived with no explanation, only a note in Roger's precise handwriting. Found among Elle's belongings. Addressed to you. Near had stared at the note for a long time, his gray eyes unblinking, as if he could unravel its meaning through sheer force of will. Elle had left something for him, a message, a clue, a test. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. Elle had always been a puzzle, even to those closest to him. His methods were oblique, his motives veiled, his trust a rare and fleeting gift. If this drawer held a riddle, it was not meant to be solved easily. Near's fingers traced the keyhole, feeling the cool metal against his skin. There was no key. Of course, Elle would not have made it so simple. He tilted his head, his white hair falling across his face, and considered the possibilities. A lockpick? Too crude. A code? Possible. But Elle favored complexity over convention. Near's gaze drifted to the papers around him, fragments of Elle's case files on Kira, each one a testament to the detective's relentless pursuit. The death note, the killings, the patterns of death, they were all pieces of a larger game, one Elle had played until his final breath. And now it seemed he had passed the board to Near. Speak to me, Near murmured, his voice soft, almost childlike, though it carried a weight that belied his years. He wasn't addressing the drawer, not really, but the ghost of Elle, the shadow that lingered in every decision Near made. What did you see that I haven't? He began to work, his movements methodical but tinged with an urgency he rarely allowed himself to feel. He examined the drawer from every angle, noting its weight, its texture, the faint scratches on its surface. There was a pattern to the scratches, irregular but deliberate, as if someone had etched them with purpose. Near's pulse quickened, a rare flicker of excitement breaking through his stoic facade. He reached for a magnifying glass, his fingers trembling slightly, and studied the marks. They weren't random, they formed a sequence, a cipher, each scratch varying in length and depth. It was Elle's handiwork, unmistakable to anyone who knew his penchant for hiding truths in plain sight. The cipher took hours to decode. Near worked in silence, his mind a whirl of symbols and possibilities, his fingers sketching patterns on a notepad as he cross-referenced the scratches with known cryptographic methods. Elle had favored polybius squares and Vigenère ciphers, but this was something else, a hybrid, layered with misdirection. Nir's lips twitched, the ghost of a smile. El was testing him, even from beyond the grave, pushing him to prove he was worthy of the mantle. By the time the first rays of dawn crept through the study's skylight, Nir had cracked it. The cipher revealed a six-digit number, 251,109. He stared at it, his mind racing. A date? A code? A reference to something only El would understand? He tried it as a combination, pressing the digits into the drawer's lock with a makeshift tool, but nothing happened. Frustration gnawed at him, a rare emotion that made his hands clench. He was missing something, a key to the key. He leaned back, twirling a lock of hair around his finger, and let his mind drift. El had always been 3 steps ahead, his plans nested within plans, his trust parceled out in fragments. If this drawer was meant for Nir, it wasn't just a puzzle, it was a message. A piece of El's final strategy against Kira. Nir's thoughts turned to the case files, to the endless stream of data El had collected. Names, dates, patterns of death. The number 251,109 didn't match any of them. Not directly, but there was something familiar about it. A nagging sense of recognition that tugged at the edges of his consciousness. He reached for the case files, flipping through pages with a speed that belied his calm exterior. His eyes scanned the timelines, the victim lists, the profiles of suspects. And then he saw a footnote, buried in one of El's encrypted reports, referencing a date, November 9, 2004. In numeric form, 9-11-4. Reversed, it became 401,109. Not exact, but close. Too close to be coincidence. Nir's breath caught, his mind snapping into focus. The number wasn't a date, it was a pointer, a reference to a specific moment in El's investigation. November 9, 2004, was the day El had first confronted Light Yagami face to face, chaining himself to his prime suspect in a bold, reckless gambit. It was a turning point, the moment El had bet everything on his intuition, risking his life to unmask Kira. Nir's fingers tightened around the file, his heart pounding. The drawer wasn't just a puzzleite, was a window into El's mind at that critical juncture. A snapshot of his strategy when he was closest to victory. But why 251,109? Nir's mind churned, piecing together the fragments. He realized the discrepancy 25 instead of 40 might be deliberate. A secondary layer of the cipher. He tried subtracting. 40, 25 equals 15. 15 days before November 9 was October 25, 2004. Nir's eyes widened. That was the day Misa Amane had been identified as the second Kira. A breakthrough that had shifted the entire investigation. El had known, even then, that Misa was the key to unraveling Light's plans. But he'd played his hand carefully, never revealing the full extent of his suspicions. Nir returned to the drawer, his fingers tracing the keyhole again. The number wasn't a combination, it was a clue, directing him to a specific file, a specific piece of evidence. He rifled through the case files again, searching for anything dated October 25, 2004. And there it was. A single page, tucked into a folder, marked Secondary Suspects, written in El's precise, angular script. It was a profile of Misa Amane, but it wasn't the official one. This was personal, a collection of observations, theories, and questions El had never shared with the task force. Misa Amane is not merely a pawn, El had written. Her devotion to Kira is absolute, but her recklessness is her weakness. If Kira is Light Yagami, as I suspect, Misa is both his greatest asset and his greatest liability. To defeat Kira, one must exploit her loyalty without alerting him. A direct approach will fail. Subtlety is required. I have devised a contingency should I fall. Nir, if you are reading this, you are my contingency. Nir's breath caught, his fingers trembling as he read the words. L had known he might die. He had planned for it, prepared for it, and entrusted Nier with the task of finishing what he could not. The drawer, the cipher, the file, they were all part of a posthumous gambit, a way for L to guide Nier from beyond the grave. But the riddle wasn't complete. The file ended with a single line, written in a different ink, as if added later. The key lies with the one who sees but does not act. Nier frowned, his mind racing. The phrase was cryptic, even for L. Was it a reference to Light, who manipulated others while hiding his true nature? To Ryuk, the Shinigami who observed but rarely interfered? Or to someone else entirely, Watari, perhaps? Or a member of the task force? Nier's gaze returned to the drawer. He hadn't opened it yet, but he was close. The file had given him context, but the lock demanded something more, a physical key, perhaps, or a final piece of the puzzle. He searched the study, his movements frantic now, overturning books and papers, looking for anything L might have hidden. And then he found it. A small, brass key, taped to the underside of the desk, its surface etched with the same pattern of scratches as the drawer. His hands shook as he inserted the key, the lock clicking open with a soft, satisfying sound. Inside the drawer was a single item, a microcassette tape, labeled in L's handwriting. For Nier's heart pounded, his mind a whirlwind of anticipation and dread. He didn't have a tape player, but he knew where to find one in Roger's office, among the relics of Whammy's house's past. He moved quickly, clutching the tape like a lifeline. The house was silent, its corridors dark, but Nier barely noticed. He reached Roger's office, found the ancient tape player, and inserted the cassette with trembling fingers. The machine whirred to life, and then L's voice filled the room, low, deliberate, tinged with the faintest hint of urgency. "Nier," L said, his voice crackling through the static. "If you are listening to this, I am dead, and Kira has won a battle, but not the war. You are my successor. But you are not me. Do not try to emulate me. You must surpass me. The key to defeating Kira lies in understanding his heart, not his mind. Light Yagami is brilliant, but he is human. His pride is his weakness, and Misa Amane is the thread that will unravel him. I have left you a tool, sit wisely." The tape cut off abruptly, leaving Nier in silence. He sat there, his mind reeling, the weight of L's words settling over him like a mantle. A tool. L had left him something more, something beyond the tape, beyond the file. But what? And where? Nier's thoughts turned to the phrase, "the one who sees but does not act." It was the final piece, the answer to the riddle. And then it hit him, Ryuk. The Shinigami, who watched lights rise and fall with detached amusement, who saw everything but rarely intervened. L had suspected Ryuk's role, had known the Shinigami was the wild card in Kira's game. The tool L had left wasn't an objective, was a strategy, a way to manipulate Ryuk, to turn the Shinigami's boredom into a weapon against light. Nier's lips curved into a rare, genuine smile. L had given him more than a clue. He had given him a path. The riddle was solved, but the game was far from over. Kira was still out there, his power growing, his arrogance blinding him to the noose tightening around his neck. Nier would play L's game, but he would play it his way, methodical, relentless, and utterly unforgiving. The days that followed were a blur of preparation. Nier pored over L's files, piecing together the fragments of his strategy, mapping out a plan to exploit Misa's recklessness and Light's pride. He contacted the remnants of the Kira task force, using encrypted channels to avoid detection. He studied Ryuk's behavior, analyzing every mention of the Shinigami in L's notes, searching for a way to manipulate the creature's curiosity. But beneath his calm exterior, Nier was haunted by L's voice. by the weight of the legacy he carried. He was not L, and he never would be. L had been a force of nature, a mind that bent the world to his will. Nier was differentiator, colder, more precise. He didn't crave justice or glory. He craved victory, the satisfaction of solving the unsolvable. And Kira was the ultimate puzzle, a challenge that would define him or destroy him. The tape remained his touchstone, a reminder of L's faith in him. He listened to it again and again, memorizing every inflection, every pause, and each time he felt a little closer to understanding the man who had shaped him, the man who had seen the end, but refused to let it be the final word. The riddle L left in the locked drawer was more than a clue, it was a call to arms, a challenge to surpass the master. Nier would answer it, not for L, not for justice, but for himself. And when the time came, Light Yagami would learn what it meant to face a mind that saw everything, even the shadows he thought he'd hidden.